Okay, thank you. Okay, so before we dig into this, I want to give people the opportunity to get additional gift cards. We know Dr. Juarez and Sarah's are coming, so I wanna get like a little summary of what we have learned so far. So for a gift card, uh, who can name the 5 major parts of the brain in the limbic system that we covered so far? What are the 5 main parts of the brain or the limbic system that we covered so far? Okay, Stella?
I think it's the hypothalamus, the amygdala,
Mhm.
hold on, the adrenal, the pituitary,
Mhm.
the cingula,
Very good.
and the singular and hold on, insula.
Insula. Excellent.
Insula.
Very good. So we covered the first one we covered was the amygdala, which is the alarm system. And then the second one is the hippocampus, that holds the memories. And then we went into the insula that has to do with internal experiences. And then we move it into the singular cortex, which is more like the self-regulation, but it's already going on the upper layers of the cortex. And then we have the prefrontal cortex, where all the uh, higher thinking is happening. So this is all very involved in the in trauma, in complex trauma. So excellent, very good, Estela. So another gift card on the way. Now, for another opportunity, can somebody summarize what functions each of these structures play?
In
So,
the,
Marilyn.
no, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Oh, sorry. The question is, these 5 main structures of the limbic system, which are involved in complex trauma, what function or functions each of these structures play in complex trauma? Anybody? All right. So
Give it a try.
Okay, please.
Okay. So so connecting them all to like the trauma and their functions, correct?
Mhm.
Kind of,
Yeah.
Dr. Corina? Okay.
Yeah, your understanding.
So
Yeah.
so the amygdala like the fear
I'm sorry, you're freezing. Your audio is freezing.
So that one is the one that receives like that fear of like the trauma, and this the one. Can you hear me now?
Try it again.
Can you hear me now?
Try it. Yeah. Okay. Try it again. Yeah.
So I was saying that the amygdala is like the fear center, and that one is the one that sends like the information. The hippocampus is the one that gets like the incorrect information. Basically kind of what we're saying, like if you were seeing like the example that you gave of your client who he sees like a car and he feels that they're gonna like show him a gun again, so that's the incorrect information.
Very good.
Then the insula, it could be either under or hyper. We wanted to be regulated because we wanted it to be active but like regulated, not too up or too under. And that's the one about you said like the internal experiences. And then number 4 is the cingulate cortex, and that one's very strong connected to the prefrontal cortex. And in the prefrontal cortex, that one's associated with the concentration and the attachment to other people. That's what I have.
Very good, excellent. So another gift card coming, very good. So that's and that's why my main purpose is for you to kind of like in your own understanding what happens. So and this is kind of like what because again this is too complicated for us. You know, obviously this is from like a medicine or like medical school, but for us it's very relevant because this is what we want to know from our clients. So in summary, so the thalamus is kind of like the relay center. It's just whatever is coming as sensory, the thalamus is the one that first gets it. And then if it's something that detects that is fear, it goes to the amygdala. The amygdala, depending if it's depending on your experiences, like if it's a normal amygdala, it will have almost a cautious approach. We say like heights or snakes. So that's kind of like almost like an automatic response. However, in PTSD or complex trauma, it's too sensitive. And because it doesn't have the ability to understand, it asks the hippocampus for feedback because the hippocampus is the one that stores memory, especially emotional memories. So the hippocampus will then give feedback to the amygdala. Oh yeah, this is if there's no trauma, oh, this is your cat, your cat that you know for years, and it doesn't represent any fear. But if it has been attacked, let's say by an animal, it's gonna say, yeah, this is a lion that reminds us of the lion that attacked you before. So therefore, it's dangerous. So the amygdala then talks to the hypothalamus and say, this is crisis. And then the hypothalamus begins activates the SNS, which is part of the HPA axis. Remember, that's the release of the 1400 chemicals throughout our brain and our body. And then that's how the SNS gets activated and we go into PTSD symptoms. And the insula is again like Dr. Vera was suggesting, we want it to be regulated. If it's too hypo, we can go into dissociation or numbness. If it's too hyper, then we can go into uh, severe anxiety or panic attacks. And then the singular cortex again is the one that helps us to self-regulation. And if it's too activated, it's also involved in OCDs. And the prefrontal cortex is kind of like our higher ability to understand logic, attention, focus, concentration. So we want all these areas to be working properly. So for us to be able to, function okay versus PTSD reactions. Excellent. So this is, and then we're gonna have a little description of the right versus the left hemisphere. And that's kind of when we go into childhood, the development of complex trauma in childhood and adolescence. So this is the part that we're gonna cover today. All right. I had it ready right now.
So, and I will hold my microphone down to it. Okay, so we're gonna break in 5 minutes. Before we do that, I wanna move a little bit into trauma in kids. So I'm like neuroscience of trauma, your brain on trauma, but what's happening in kids? Okay, first of all, healthy functioning in kids. And there's a couple of areas of the brain that we haven't talked about, just ignore those. But this is the main thing I wanna communicate about: healthy brain functioning in kids. Healthy brain functioning is that bottom heavy brain. These areas down here are more activated. These areas up here are less activated, and that is totally normal, healthy. That is just being a kid. Kids' brains develop in large part from the bottom up. Okay, so remember I said these areas up here, not developed until 27. It used to be 25, now they're saying 27. No major life decisions before 27. seeing a college student who's 20, she's like, I don't know what to major in. And I'm like, just calm down. Like anything you decide now anyway, like who knows? 27. When you're a little kid, these low areas of the brain are much more activated. Because this is the way kids are wired, what it means is that they are set up to be especially vulnerable to trauma. Especially because their amygdalae are on fire anyway. It's just part of being a kid. You don't want to intensify that. As it is, they don't have a lot going on up here. You don't want to traumatize them and slow the development here. You don't want the amygdala hijacking their development that they're trying to get, as these areas are very slowly trying to come online. So let me give you a rundown of very, very general order of operations, brain development in kids, and then we will link it to trauma when we get back from lunch. Order of operations. First 18 months to 2 years of life is pretty much all right hemisphere. It's right hemisphere development. So no matter how smart your kid is, they were not talking at 4 or 5 months old. That's left hemisphere. Right hemisphere, attachment, attunement, connection to other people. At birth, that's what you're wired for. That's the only job of infancy. You are primed, you are ready to attach, and that's what has to happen. And it's a critical period. Now, there's multiple critical periods of attachment. It's not that you just attach in the first 2 years of life and then never again. There's multiple important time frames for attachment, but the first and the most critical is the first 2 years of life, all right hemisphere. You even have this little area of the brain called the fusiform facial gyrus, okay, in your right temporal lobe. It's a little bitty area of your brain. All it does is it recognizes human faces, not like goat faces or cat, dog faces, human faces. And at birth, it's right there, it's ready to go. You can't see very well as a newborn infant, but you can see just to the distance of a caregiver's face. And your fusiform facial gyrus allows you to recognize them. You are primed to attach. This is all for attachment. It's adaptive to be able to recognize and bond with your caregivers. That's first 2 years of life. After 2 years of life, slowly, left hemisphere starts to come online. That's why it's around the age of 1.5, 2, 2.5, that language really comes alive. Kids, right? They develop more and more language. I got a 4.5-year-old. Everything's why. Why? All of the questions about all of the things. And they're very deep questions, and she doesn't mean for them to be, but they are. It's very left hemisphere as it's coming online. Also, as infants, amygdala is very, very on fire. This makes sense. The world is actually dangerous. You are totally helpless and at other people's mercy. So yeah, the amygdala is really activated. Throughout childhood and adolescence, the goal is for the amygdala to get less activated with experience with the world. The only way it becomes less activated, though, is if you can buy into the delusion that the world is safe and stable and happy and people are reliable and are going to meet your needs. We all have to have this delusion. And what happens is the amygdala says, oh, this is overkill. We don't need to have so many neurons here. Like everything is pretty predictable and safe. Let's go ahead and shed these neurons. And so that way, when you're 30 or 40, you're not as revved up as you were when you were 6 months old, right? Calm down. That's what's supposed to happen. Can't happen unless you have good attachment, though. We'll link this to trauma. So the amygdala is supposed to go down in its activation over time. The neurons actually prune off of the amygdala. And as you get older, very slowly, these areas, the cingulate, the prefrontal cortex, they come online, and in your late 20s, eventually it's finished developing. We know personality crystallizes around 30, kind of goes with that time frame roughly. There you go, and you have a well-working brain. That's generally what happens. So I'm going to tell you after lunch, okay, what happens when there's trauma? How does it impact this trajectory? Okay, we're going to get started. So I am going to tighten things up a little bit. We're on track with material, but somebody made a great point that, you know, it's fine to ask some questions, but if we kind of keep at this pace, we will get behind. So we're going to tighten just a little bit. So I'm not going to say like no questions, but I would say when you're asking the question, make sure you make it concise so that I can repeat it back. And it's going to be easy to tighten things up and maybe take fewer questions now because we're moving out of some of that basic brain area stuff into kind of another domain here where we're going to talk about trauma presentations and trauma assessment and evaluation. So we're going to be moving in the direction of interventions. But before we do that, we had left off at the neuroscience of complex trauma, and I had said kind of how the brain developed, right hemisphere, then left hemisphere, neuronal pruning, and then these areas up here, kind of the last to fully finish in your 20s. So I wanted to mention what is happening with childhood trauma and why it is fundamentally different. So getting traumatized for the first time at 30 is very different than getting traumatized for the first time at 3 or 1 especially. Now I mentioned that, and here's a slide just with some findings of complex trauma, but I'm going to say in words, hopefully in a way that makes more sense than just reading them on the screen. But remember that right hemisphere develops first 2 or so years of life. It's that first 2 years of life that's your first and biggest, most critical attachment period. So there's different critical periods for attachment. That first 2 years is the biggest main one, where if you don't get secure attachment, you don't get your emotional and physical needs met to some bare minimum, I think good enough mother standard, it's not actually that demanding. You just have to get your needs met some of the time. If you get those needs met, what happens is it facilitates the rapid development of that right hemisphere, which remember is primed to attach at birth. It actually facilitates the left hemisphere beginning to develop on time, around the age of 2. It develops at the pace it's supposed to develop. And so you can kind of see the entire brain development trajectory is helped with secure attachment in those first 2 years. If the needs are not sufficiently met, first 18 months or 2 years, slows things down. So it begins to disrupt development of the right hemisphere, and then it has a cascade effect, like everything else that comes after. So it's not just, oh, it impacts this one area of the brain, but it disrupts this developmental phase and everything that comes after that. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody with complex trauma is always going to suffer the same types of mental health conditions later on. It doesn't mean that everybody's impacted the same way. People coming out of a Romanian orphanage, I mean, you're going to see some differences based on a lot of factors, but just know that when you're disrupting development early, then there's a lot of question marks about what this is going to mean later, like a whole lot of question marks. And the earlier the trauma is, the more the question marks. Okay, so if there's that disruption in the first couple of years of life, what happens is it slows down that right hemisphere. It makes it so the left hemisphere may not develop on time. And if it doesn't develop on time, this is very important that things happen in a certain time frame. What you might end up with is an underactive left hemisphere long term. If your left hemisphere never fully develops, then what you're going to get is you're going to get stuck in negative emotions and withdrawal behaviors. Because remember, the left hemisphere is for approach behaviors and positive emotions. And if it doesn't fully develop, a lot of times what that looks like is pretty severe intractable depression in people as they get older. And really, it's trauma-based depression, but that's a lot of times when you send someone for TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation, and they put the little electrodes on your skull here, and they're doing it on the left side. They're trying to activate the left hemisphere. That's usually the goal, to kind of get that left hemisphere going. But so if the right hemisphere is delayed, the left hemisphere gets delayed. If you grow up in an abusive or neglectful environment where you don't get that delusion that you need, that everything's okay and everybody's like stable and predictable and secure, then what happens is the amygdala won't prune. They'll say, well, we've learned that the world is dangerous. We need this activation to stay alive, to survive. We need to be vigilant. And so the amygdala doesn't prune. And so you get somebody who's anxious all throughout life. So you don't get that pruning process. So it's not that then therapy later in adulthood wouldn't still be super helpful, but it's a lot easier to downregulate an amygdala that had pruned than one that never did prune. You can see it's an uphill battle. It's going to take longer usually with complex trauma. Then you have the issue of like the prefrontal cortex and what happens to those areas through development. You can have deficits that are consistent with frontal deficits, such as lack of concentration, lack of connection to others. I mentioned the identity issues, depending on how early and how severe the trauma was. Do they even form their own identity? So there's a lot of things that can happen. In terms of what the critical attachment ages seem to be, there's some debate over this, but of course that first 18 months to 24 months is like the main critical attachment period. But there also seems to be one around the age of 5, where trauma before the age of 5 seems to have a pretty different impact than trauma after the age of 5. It's a lot worse before the age of 5. And it's even worse than that before the age of 2. So my daughter's 4.5, and I always think, yeah, you just got to get her to 5. You just get her to 5. That's good. That's like that critical point. The next one seems to be somewhere around the age of 10, 11. Something like that. So some researchers have noted that some ruptures or a death, like a death of a parent at like 9 or 10 seems to be very different than 12, 13, actually. Okay, so there's differences. And so the earlier the trauma, the more the question marks. You want to do everything you can to not traumatize kids at all, but especially early. Of course, we don't have control over everything, but you can see how, as the brain develops, depending on where that interruption is, it can have a lot of different effects. So if you work with complex trauma, developmental trauma, you'll probably want to get some training in specifically that. Sometimes I do workshops just on that. And a lot of the work will be very attachment-based, will be very alliance-based. If you're working directly with kids, this is more geared toward adults, but if you're working with kids, it's going to be movement-based, play-based, sensory-based, because of where their brain is in the development at that time. Yeah. In utero drug exposure. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Drug exposure in utero, what's being impacted? I don't really know. I mean, my wild guess is that it's lower areas, amygdala, hypothalamus, making the child have a very hard time calming down. And I mean, that's what we see behaviorally. Yeah, it's a good question. So yeah, we really want to do our best for kids to be able to have uninterrupted brain development as much as possible. And as long as we're not, traumatizing kids, this stuff happens pretty naturally. Of course, the better the environment, the better, but really want to stay away from trauma. So this is just some list of the things that I've already talked about. Okay, that's happening in the brain.
Okay, so very interesting. So I'm gonna try to summarize it, and then I want to see your feedback. So it is critical for a healthy development of a child, especially from birth to 2. And then they talked also about around 5, there's another critical phase, and then 10, 11. And it's interesting how the right hemisphere develops first. And the right hemisphere is the one that is very active in attachment, attunement. So the ability to self-regulation, empathy. So if the right hemisphere doesn't fully develop, you can see how children will struggle. And not just with the lack of this development, but also it delays the left hemisphere development. So you can see how it will not just be one problem, but almost like a combination or a sequence of problems. What do they call it? The trajectory of the human brain development. And so with the left hemisphere being more like the positive emotions, the tasks, the logical, sequential, detailed. And so kids could also have problems with that part of the those tasks because of the left hemisphere not fully developed. And it's also interesting how, and it makes a lot of sense, because we as a species, we are created in order to survive. How do we survive? By recognizing dangers. And it's interesting how the amygdala is very sensitive early on, and it almost like the positive experiences has to like calm it down, like control it. But if you never have positive experiences, the amygdala will stay in the same way of almost not feeling safe. So that was very interesting. So they call it the pruning, neuronal pruning. That it almost like a lot of areas of the amygdala are not necessary because the world is not so dangerous all the time. But with somebody who had experiences of abuse or not attaching, it almost like the amygdala is not going to recognize that the world is not safe. So it would almost be activated all the time, and that's why people, when we talk about hypervigilance, or paranoia or difficulty trusting in their environment or others, it makes a lot of sense because the amygdala never really experienced a sense of safety and protection. So it's so crucial for the secure attachment, because almost the baby is almost created in order to develop a sense of security, protection, and attachment. And when children don't get that, it's almost like you're already in such a disadvantaged position. What else did I miss? Oh, and it's interesting how our brains doesn't fully develop until we're like about 27 or so. So it makes a lot of sense, why teenagers are so kind of like immature and they have personality issues and all that stuff. What else did I miss? Anything else that is important to mention?
I think one thing she said, similar to what you mentioned, but the earlier the trauma, the more questions or the uphill battle there will be.
And remember, we are connecting this information to ACEs, and after this we're gonna go into ACEs too. So what she's talking about, a lot of this information also came out of the ACEs study. So we're going to be also combining the ACEs studies, the results, and we're going to combine it with this material because it makes a lot of sense. So it's almost like we are incorporating everything that we know and kind of like trying to make sense based on all the research, but also based on our own experience of seeing clients. So it will make a lot of sense, when we put it all together. Because I mentioned last time we attended the other training on the medical, the chronic conditions, and this is all associated with that. So we're going to somehow incorporate all this information. By the way, these recordings are going to be available in our virtual office. So again, we're gonna somehow find a way for people just to access it if you want to go back to some of these areas. So very good. So remember the attunement, attachment, secure attachment. So 0 to 2 is very critical. It's interesting because it makes a lot of sense. How do we know that? Let's say from 0 to 2, there's no language because language develops in the left hemisphere, and the left hemisphere hasn't developed by that time. So the baby is almost its purpose is to find attachment. And she also mentioned some part of the brain that it doesn't recognize faces, but it recognizes enough, or it becomes conditioned to hear this voice, to see this image, even if blurry, that it's attachment, that this person is going to not only feed me, but comfort me, protect me. So the sense of protection, when we talk about basic needs, and later on we're going to talk about basic needs. And when we talk about unmet needs and the psychopathology associated with that, we're going to understand, this part more. So we're gonna be incorporating other other trainings, and so that we make more sense. But this is crucial because we are beginning to understand more how trauma is impacting the brain development. Okay, Dr. Juarez.
I think what made it really interesting too was how she connected like the development of depression too,
Mhm.
about how it all has an impact and where like really depression could stem from.
Yeah, because remember the right hemisphere is associated with negative feelings, emotions. And then she was saying like, did I understand that how they're doing electrical
Feedback,
stimulation of the brain?
neurofeedback.
Yeah, that and for people who are fully very depressed, typical depression, and they don't experience positive emotions. So sometimes they have those electrical, I forgot what it is, ECT or something, trying to stimulate that part of the brain in order to have positive emotions.
Mm.
Okay, so how is this in real practice? Fortunately, Angel came today, and I recorded. I recorded a session, not recording him, just recorded it and the audio. So you will see how in my interpretation of this material and then how I'm going to present it in clinical practice. So again, Angel is the 15-year-old, 14-year-old kid, Latino kid that was in a bus stop about 3-4 months ago, waiting for the bus. A car kind of slowed down. The guy took out a gun, and ever since then, this kid has been a total mess. He doesn't go to school. He doesn't go out anywhere. He has severe anxiety. He has insomnia. He has depression too. So it almost like he was thrown off balance. I think he had some problems before, and I suspect that he might have some attention deficit problems, and perhaps some mood disorders previous to this trauma. But this trauma really made it a lot worse. And so even to come here, he struggles. So this will be, it's 3 short segments of my sessions. One will be in my office, kind of like getting him ready. Second will be taking him out, walking around the corner and sitting in a bus stop. And third, coming back for the closure of the session. So this will be the first part of the session. Let me know if you can hear it okay, because it's from my phone. So I'm gonna try to play it, and then let me know if you can hear it. So tell me how you been.
I've been good.
Can you hear it?
Practicing more.
Yeah.
I'm kind of getting
Okay.
more used to
Here
going outside.
or here?
Like I feel more confident.
It doesn't matter. You can put it down.
I'm less struggling, but kind of getting here now, here and there. But I still kind of get a little nervous. Like right now, I'm still nervous. You might not see it, but I'm nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 0 to 10 right now, what number are you?
I'm like a 5.
A 5?
Yeah.
And how do you know that you're a 5?
Because I'm like I'm not that nervous, but I'm nervous.
And so how do you, in your body, in your mind, how does it feel to be nervous? What kind of sensations do you have?
Like I have pressure, in my stomach. So like I hold it, like I get tight.
Okay.
And my hands get sweaty.
Okay, so your stomach gets tight, your hands get sweaty.
Yeah, like my whole body gets tight, but then I release it. Like,
Okay, so in your body, being nervous or anxious feels in your stomach, and it feels in your hands being sweaty. Any other sensation in your body?
No, not at all right now.
And what about your thought process? Like, what kind of things you think about? What kind of thoughts come when you feel nervous?
Well, the same thing what happened, like about the gun and everything. But
So
I try not to get it into me like that much, you know. I try
so what kind of thoughts come in? Like, do you thoughts of it's gonna happen again? The thoughts of you being in danger again, or what kind of normally what kind of thoughts?
just like happening again, I guess.
So you think that it will happen again?
Some days I do, some days I don't.
Okay, and when you get nervous, like today coming out, what kind of thoughts came to your head?
It just it came like just like I was just standing there and he just came and pulled up and then took out the gun. And,
So those images keep coming,
yeah, those images keep coming.
and when they come out, what happens to you?
I just get a little like freaked out, a little nervous, and like I'm cautious. And I'm looking everywhere. Like I don't know.
Okay, so your sensations are and you're feeling in your stomach, your body feeling tight, your hands shaking. Your thought process is like, oh, it could happen to me again, and your patterns are you avoid going out because you think it's gonna happen again.
I try to avoid it, but then you know it's good for me, so I can practice.
Oh yeah, so you even though you're feeling this strong sensation, difficult feelings and thoughts, you go and try it to you're not allowing that to prevent you from going out. So you try more.
Yeah, I try to at least walk like on the sidewalk, go up, and then just come back down like that.
And when you practice and you're successful, how does that feel for you?
I walk and I go back, but I'm nervous, you know.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'm nervous. I go and I come back, but I'm nervous. Like,
Okay. So, but do you feel like the more you practice, the better it gets?
I mean, I've been improving since way before back then. I mean, back then I didn't want to go out, but now yeah, here and there. So
Also, you feel like you're improving.
I feel like I am improving.
Great. And when you have that feeling of improving, that give you more motivation to keep trying more and more to get better?
Yeah.
Okay. So now, so you understand that the incident kind of set your mind to think that every car is dangerous or every time you go out is dangerous and that something bad is going to happen to you. But you realize that the more you allow God to control your life, the stronger it gets.
Yeah.
But then when you go out and you actually put yourself out there, cars pass by and nothing happens, you go for a walk, nothing happens. So the more you do it, you begin to realize that your mind is almost playing tricks on you because it makes you think that every time you go out, every time a car passes by, something bad is going to happen. But you realize that that's not true because you go out and every time you go out, you come back and nothing bad happens.
Yeah.
So you begin to control your mind instead of your mind controlling you on this fear, on this idea or this feeling that every time that you go out, something bad is going to happen. And before you let your mind dominate you and you stay indoors all the time.
Yeah, like I'll just sit there and just like, damn, that for real happened. Like now I just stay there and be like damn, that happened, you know, like
Yeah.
like damn, I don't know what to say to that. Like damn, that just happened. Like you know, there's nothing to do.
Very good, great. So and you know that, yeah. So that you had no control over what happened at that time, but you can control what you're doing now in terms of saying, I cannot allow myself to stay in the past.
Yeah.
I need to
move on.
move on, like you said, yeah, because you're so young and you're a teen and you're supposed to be going out there having a good time, going to school, doing the regular things, and this cannot hold you back. So you realize that this is in the past and it stayed in your mind, but it doesn't mean that it has to be the present or the future, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So now what happens when I introduce the breathing exercises? Like I know you're a fighter now, Do you feel like that helps you?
It does help me, but like in a situation, like if I go outside, I just won't be thinking about the breathing type.
Okay, so you forget.
I'm more thinking about like the situation what happened like 2 or 3 months ago.
Okay, so that's good. So that's kind of like what we need to practice more and more and more, so that when you go out and you feel anxious like that, instead of focusing on what happened 3 months ago, you remember, oh, I need to have my breathing, my relaxing exercises, so that if it goes to, let's say, a 7, then you're able to bring it down to a 3 or 4, where it's more manageable. So you have to keep reminding yourself, I know my techniques, I just need to apply them right now. So it's practice, practice, practice. And what happens to you? Tell me about when I take you out into the streets, into the bus stop and all the cars. What happens to you?
I'm nervous. I'm like cautious, but then it just like it goes away. But then I'll like it'll just come back like the thinking again.
You will come back in the same moment or afterwards?
Moments like we're probably talking, and then after we stop talking, I'll come back again.
It will come back. And remember, the main thing about this is practicing. So you have to keep practicing, practicing, practicing. The more you practice, the better it's gonna get. But if you don't practice, then it will stay at the same level. So these exercises, remember the way that we think about it, all the things that we have practiced, you need to do it on your own too. Because whenever you're out there and you feel this level of nervousness, you say, I know what to do to bring it down. You know, like you say, you feel more confident. The more you do it, the more confident you're gonna feel. So that's good. So you're good. So that's exactly what we need to do. One is for you to come out, don't stay indoors, but expose yourself, going out. Secondly, keep remember your breathing exercises and the thinking exercises that we practice. And third, develop on your confidence level that this is gonna be part of the past, and moving forward, you're gonna be able to control it. Okay, so all right, so let's do the breathing thing, because I'm gonna take you out there again. So remember how we already know this exercise, and every time we use it, it works really well.
Yeah.
So remember, sit back, relax. Begin to drop your body, into the sofa. Just feel like there's no effort for you to sit down. Just kind of drop your body.
Yeah.
And remember, and then we just follow the instructions from the. Ready?
Yeah.
It says like get comfortable. If you want to close your eyes, just be ready to take deep breaths and to release them slowly. So here we go.
2, 3, 4.
Breathe deep.
Hold.
Hold
2,
it.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Breathe out.
Breathe out slowly.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in.
Again, breathe in.
2, 3, 4.
All the way in.
Hold.
Hold it.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Breathe out.
Okay. Release
3,
slowly.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in.
Breathe in again.
2, 3, 4. Hold.
Hold it.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Breathe out.
Release slowly.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in.
Breathing
2,
again.
3, 4. Hold. 2,
Hold it.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Breathe out.
Release.
3,
slowly.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in.
Breathe again.
2, 3, 4. Hold.
Hold
2,
it.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Breathe out.
Release.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. At the end of the last cycle, relax and notice how you feel.
Okay, let's do some stretching. Stretch out. You know, put your feet like this. Ground yourself. You know, just feel present.
Yeah, like the toes right here.
Yeah,
I feel it right here.
you can feel it like that. Yeah, so just release the energy and just feel like your presence. You're here. Like you're safe. You're comfortable. You know, nothing is happening to you. Enjoy the feeling of feeling safe. 'Cause
Yeah.
right now you're feeling safe.
Yeah.
You know. So what number do you think you are right now?
3
3. So you went from a 3. You went from a 5 to a 3.
and 3, 2.
Or 2, even 2. So that's good. Like, you know, see how you're able to, on your own, bring down the level of nervousness. But this, you have to keep practicing. Like the same way, like, you know, if you play soccer or if you ride a bicycle or play basketball. So the more you practice, the better you're gonna get. So don't forget, whenever you feel anxious, nervous, to get these exercises. And remember the thinking, also the thinking exercises that we have done. So the more you practice, the better it's gonna get. Okay, so just keep remembering to do those breathing exercises, those grounding exercises. So I'm gonna take you out, okay, to see that, to make sure that we keep practicing.
Yeah.
Okay, so as you can see, I was coming from top bottom and then bottom up. Top bottom was the cog B. What kind of thoughts, you know, come into your mind when you feel anxious or you feel like, you know, worried? Also identifying, like in the scaling, you begin to take note of the level of distress. You introduce the breathing exercise, and do you do a post scaling to see how effective the exercise was. Another thing is I help them identify somatic reactions, you know, with the body, the stomach feeling tight, the sweaty hands. So almost beginning to identify his somatic reactions so that he is fully aware of what's happening to his body when he's anxious. The other is, again, because we know that it's just practicing, you know, it's like, you know, this is neuroplasticity. Like the neuroplasticity is like the more repetitive, that every experience that he has that is positive is replacing the negative sensation, the negative experience that he had in the past. So I'm making sure that he understands the importance of practicing. I'm also identifying thought process, somatic experiences, and behavioral patterns. So I'm trying to understand all of that. And then also praising. And as you can hear, I use some of his words. Like he said, like moving on. I said it, moving on, because he said it. So I'm using some of his own words, his own language to, so that, because that's his language and he uses those words. So I use his own words to make a bigger emphasis. Then I introduced the exercise, and I helped him deregulate or de-escalate the level of anxiety, and then I praise him for doing that, and I give him, like, I encourage him to continue on his own, and then I get him ready to go out. So what else did you observe? What did I miss something? Should I done something else, or what do you think the effectiveness of these techniques? Any questions?
I wanted to say something. I think it was a really great way of just kind of decreasing a lot of the symptoms. It sounds like the young guy is very anxious, especially when just the way he's talking. But I'm wondering if exploring some of the just a feedback of like, when is it in his life if he's ever accomplished anything? Kind of the encouragement if he accomplished something while growing up, what has he if he accomplished it, because it almost sounds he's very resistant in a sense, and that could be due to something in his life where it feels if he's if something going on. But I just feel like there's some like resistance when you're even trying to tell him practice. Sounds like he's very kind of like, yeah, I know I could do it, but there's a pushback. And so I'm wondering if kind of diverting some of the attention of like, well, you've accomplished this before, what makes you think you can't accomplish what's going on now? So I don't know if I make that makes any sense.
That's excellent, and that's why I've asked for feedback. Because maybe I'm missing something. I suspect this kid. I don't know why. I did a timeline, and there's no previous traumas. You know, for me, somebody who is so severely traumatized, there has to be a previous experience. We did a timeline, and this kid doesn't report any previous trauma. I know he has attention deficit problems. His parents split up, and now they're kind of like together, but they're not together. You know, mother didn't also report any issues, any previous trauma. So there's some stuff that I'm not picking up, that I'm not fully understanding on him, because every time that we kind of go back, everything is great, everything is good. There's no report of any. But that will be because of the work I'm doing. It's not so much about that, but I think that's something that Sarah can explore a little bit more. He said that he's not into school, but he wants to. He's important that he will graduate. So he's doing all his work and he's getting tutoring. So he wants to do good, but he's not a good student. And he told me that he's learning better in one-on-one versus being in a classroom, that he gets very distracted. He doesn't do his work. But yeah, so I think that there's a lot of low self-esteem. There's a lot of very low level of confidence, self-confidence, and self-efficacy. I don't think he sees himself as very capable. I think he sees himself as very, even a little weird, because he told me that he doesn't have much social interactions, and he kind of like a lonely kind of kid, and he doesn't practice any sports or anything like that. He doesn't even play those games that all the kids play. So I know there's other stuff beyond the trauma, but that will be something that I would explore with him, like previous accomplishments, and why he doesn't feel confident that he can do this. Very good. Dr. Juarez?
Sorry, I was just gonna ask something quick. What did he like to do before like the trauma happened, like for fun?
Sarah?
He would be home a lot still. He actually didn't go out a lot. Let's see here. He would go out a lot with his mom, his family. And in regards to friends, like his mom had to kind of like push him along to go out with a friend. And that's what he was doing that specific day, as well as coming back from a friend's house. Yeah. And then let's see here. He's definitely talked about things that have been motivating, but they're very short-lived as well. I too, like Dr. Corena, suspect something else. I think he would be a really good candidate for testing, perhaps.
Yeah.
He does have an IEP. I'm just still trying to get a hold of it. So yeah, that's a long-winded
A
answer.
lot of yeah, Marilyn.
I was wondering, was he neglected as a child? Is he coming from a single parent upbringing?
So from what I know, I feel the mom and him are very enmeshed. You know, mother doesn't work. She's very attentive to him, and I suspect the mom is a little anxious too, and he almost picked up a lot of that anxiety from the mom. Mom is also very self-conscious. You know, her image is so important to her. And I think again, in my timeline, neither the mom or the kid reported any previous trauma. The only thing is that their parents are very dedicated for this kid, and there's no history of domestic violence. There's no history of neglect. The father left the home for a period of time, and now he's back. And what the mom said is that they're friends, they're good friends, but that they live together now, and the father is maintaining the household. I don't know. It's kind of like a weird situation with the parents, but since she's not my client, I don't want to go there. But you know, I think it's important to understand better his previous environmental experiences, especially given what we know. Seno?
I was actually thinking the same thing enmeshment with the mom, because essentially she's been a single parent, and maybe in the environment they live, maybe she kind of embedded into like the streets not safe and you don't go out, and then this happening kind of validates everything for him. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, like mom kind of like sheltered this kid. And you know, I don't know, and maybe it's something that that you need to explore. I don't know. I suspect that this kid had an attitude, and I don't know if he likes him too. He dresses a little like a little, not like a gangster, but like, you know, kind of like a street. And he's not a street kid, but he dresses like, you know, with the hat like that, and he has this demeanor about kind of like, I don't know if he kind of asked for it also. I don't know if the car went by and he saw him like that, because I noticed that sometimes he has those little cholito wannabe kind of, you know, mannerism. And I don't know if he had an attitude or this kind of like grandiosity kind of thinking, and that's why the car kind of like picked on him. I don't know, you know. But again, because I'm mainly focusing on reducing the PTSD symptoms. You know, I did some EMDR, and we just did the incident, but nothing else came up. So I figured that EMDR was not really producing anything. So I'm doing more like I said, gradual exposure or systematic desensitization. Dr. Juarez?
I'm kind of curious to know what he chose was his safe space for EMDR.
Home.
Oh, okay.
Home. And that home, that's in his world, so everything is restricted to his bedroom, to his home, you know. And I think I'm thinking like the almost like the amygdala, it almost like became so, and it doesn't make any sense because there hasn't been anything, at least reported, that where he felt in such a level of danger before. I think doing like a very detailed timeline, and maybe you can do it with mom, from birth to going into details at any point where this kid exposed to any separation from the mother, any fearful experiences, like trying to understand more why he's having such a severe reaction. I guess we all will be like really shaken up if somebody pointing a gun at you, But to the severity of this kid, it makes no sense. I don't understand how this pathway became so activated and so dominant that he's having such a severe reaction.
Was it just like the like showing of the gun, or did they
Yeah.
follow up with "I'm gonna find you and kill you"? Or I
Oh,
don't know.
it was just as the car kind of like slowed down, the guy pulled out the gun and they kept going. It wasn't like, he was trying, and he was just kind of like, and he started running and the cops were coming. So it was a matter of split seconds. It wasn't like, and I think there were more punks, they were more like, he
Just
happened to be a
messing with him, maybe.
random. Yeah, it wasn't like after him, I don't think.
Yeah.
But it's so the reactions are so extreme that I try to conceptualize the case, and I don't understand why. So this is phase 2 is at the bus stop. So we're at the bus stop now.
Outside in the bus stop. So what kind of sensations are you having right now? Just like you're nervous and you feel through your hands sweaty and you feel tight, your body tight. What about your thought process right now? What kind of thoughts are coming into your head? Okay. Into your mind, okay. Now, knowing that you're here at this moment, right? And we see so many cars passing by, and nothing bad is happening. So it's giving you more like a sense of, you know what? You're more calm. Like, there's really no need to be so worried about all the cars because there's so many cars. How many cars do you think we went by already here? Like about 50, right? 50, 60. And when we talk about, instead of being afraid of the cars, we appreciate the cars because we're into cars. Yeah. Like that one, for instance, the black one, what is it? Mercedes, right? It's beautiful. And now, instead of looking at the car with fear, we're more looking at the car with appreciation. It's like, oh, what a nice car. So that's how you begin to change your mind to say, oh, my mind is trying to trick me that all these cars are going to hurt me. But when instead, you tell your mind, I'm not going to be afraid of the cars. Instead, I'm going to appreciate them. Yeah. See, like, beautiful. You were right. It was a Mercedes. Beautiful. So it's like, now all these bunch of cars, how many cars or these cars do you think they have the intention to hurt us? None of them. But in your mind, you're telling you all of them are going to hurt us. So you can see how it's like tricking you. It's playing a trick on you. Not what the mind is telling you is true. So tell me about what do you hear now? What do you hear? Cars passing by. You hear okay, so that's like a muffler, right? You hear the tires. Oh yeah. You hear the road. You hear some birds far away. Yeah. I think there's some birds over there. You hear the engine wheel. You hear the motor like really strong. What are you seeing? Yeah. What do you see? You see the blue sky. You see people walking, palm trees. Okay, what do you smell? Like a regular day, right? There's no smell of food, or it almost smells like your mouth, and almost like a little bit of food or somewhere. I can smell a little bit of food. And what else sensation do you feel? Do you feel cold? Do you feel hot? Do you feel normal? Okay, so your body feels normal. Do you feel the base a little hard? Your back? Huh? Okay. So all the sensations are active right now. And all the sensations are telling you, safe, nothing is happening to you. So you have to keep reminding yourself, and you have to record these moments to when your mind is telling you it's trying to trick on you. You have to remember this moment too. Not every time that you go outside is going to be dangerous for you. Like you said, it could be dangerous at night. It could be dangerous if you're by yourself. It could be dangerous if you're in a location where you know there's a lot of problems or gangs. But right now, what is the level of danger? 0. But your mind is telling you, oh, hey, you have to be fearful. You have to be scared. You have to be like, it's just tricking you. Don't let it trick you. But right now, how safe and comfortable you feel? Like a 2-1. Very good. Excellent. So let's keep enjoying the cars.
Okay, so this is the process of reconditioning, because remember Pavlov's, the bell. So it's almost like the cars are now danger, cars danger. So because car was a neutral stimulus. So now car became a conditioned response, where like a cars driving by. Before this, he saw thousands of cars driving by. They were neutral. Now, when the incident happened, he became conditioned, car passing by, conditioned response, they're gonna kill me. So almost like the Pavlov's, dog, like, the bell and the food. So before car passing by, not a big deal. The incident happened, he became unconditioned. Now cars passing by, oh my God, it's gonna kill me, they're gonna shoot at me. So this is the process of reconditioning, where you go out there and purposely facing the cars passing by, and there's no danger, there's no threat, there's no threats. So that's how it's an extinction. They call it extinction, when through repetition again, you realize that not every car is gonna hurt you. Secondly, I'm activating all his senses because I want him to have a full experience of feeling safe. The same way that he felt safe in my office, get in there. Whenever you try to recondition somebody or a situation, you have to make sure that all the senses are active, like the sense of smell, hearing, vision, sensation, body sensation, so that you activate fully. When you're doing that, the hippocampus is almost kind of remembering this. But remember that this incident is in the hippocampus, the car driving by, the gun. So now we're trying to go over there and say to the hippocampus, can you store these new memories, that are more neutral? And whenever the amygdala is asking for feedback, hopefully you will send in, oh, cars are safe, cars are okay, instead of the cars are like terrible and something bad is going to happen. So again, there's a 15-year-old kid with old guy in the middle of the road, and I say, who's paying attention to us? Nobody. And we see some cops coming by and say, oh, look, we're even protected by the police. Questions on this? All right. So we go to the third and last session, which is coming back to the office and kind of like wrapping up the session, and kind of like saying goodbye, and this is the what do you call the termination phase of the session.
The incident that happened to you messed up your alarm for danger. So because it was very dangerous what you went through, it was very traumatic.
Hold on.
When you saw the car and the gun and everything. So your alarm system. Okay.
So a little bit of psychoerror, remember the amygdala and the alarm. So now I brought him back from the tour, and now we're back in the office.
I want you to, we'll do a kind of like a recap, a summary. What did we discover? We discovered that the incident that happened to you messed up your alarm for danger. So because it was very dangerous what you went through, it was very traumatic when you saw the car and the gun and everything. So your alarm system for danger got triggered. So now it's so sensitive that every time you go out, I'm like, every time there's a car, you're already like thinking that so your alarm is too sensitive.
Especially the people behind, especially he had a bike. He could have just went by, he was just going slowly, now I gotta turn back and
Yeah, so you have to be careful. But this idea that every time you go outside or every time there's a car or something bad is gonna happen is your mind tricking you because it's so sensitive. The alarm is too sensitive.
Yeah.
So that's why you need to keep working on. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I want you to explain to me in your own understanding, in your own words, what's happening to you when you feel that.
I'm more cautious, a lot cautious. I see somebody behind me, I have to turn. I'm more my alarm is high rate. So I guess I'm more.
Yeah. If the alarm being a high rate, does it have to be permanent high, or you can regulate it little by little?
I think I can regulate it little by little.
Very good.
But I know for a fact I'm gonna be a little cautious.
Okay, very good. That's good. And how do you regulate it little by little? What can you do to regulate it?
Try not to look.
Yeah, and also be exposed, right? You have to go outside. Yeah. You have to be. What happened to when we went thinking that the cars were dangerous? Instead of seeing as dangerous, what happened? How do we switch the mode?
Talking about more cars. Talking about the cars. Talking about the cars. Talking about how they is. What's like? What it feel.
Yeah. Very good. So, what number are you right now?
Like a
1. 1?
Yeah.
Great. So you came like a 5. I took you over there. You were brave. You were really brave. You were like, takes a lot of courage, and you are good. So I commend you. For doing that. So that takes a lot of courage, and you did it. You came on a fire. I took you outside. I know you were sweating and it was dangerous, but then we got it done. And now you feel more confident that you can do it, right? Going from a 5 to a 1.
Yeah.
So congratulations on great work you did today.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's what you need to do every time. Expose yourself, feel confident. These breathing exercises, how your mind is tricking you and you control it. All those things you need to keep practicing and practicing. How do you feel? How do you feel now that you were able to do this?
I think about it like, damn, I actually went outside, went to the bus stop, walked around, went over here. That's good. Somebody like me with that experience, I think nobody would kind of do it like that. But I'm actually. From inside, I'm actually brave enough to go outside. I'm not
Very good. So you're brave enough, and that's why I praise you for being brave enough, and because your mind is telling you don't go outside. It's too dangerous. But that's the false alarm that we talk about. you say, no, I'm not gonna let it trick me and control my life. I'm gonna try to do better and better every time. Yeah. But you take over, not your alarm. Yeah, not my line. Yeah, very good. So as you live today, I want you to start practicing these exercises every day. Yeah. The more you practice, the more the easier it's gonna get. But remember, you have to keep practicing. Yeah, I need to practice. So yeah, I don't fall back. Yeah, so don't fall back. So you need make a little progress every time and keep making progress so that you don't stay stuck in the same place or you go back. Yeah. So you did good today. So again, thank you for coming and I praise you for being brave and taking the courage to do what we did today. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Good luck.
Well, I'm realizing that I was talking too much. Normally, I don't talk too much, and I don't know if it's more behavioral that I was doing. This kid, but as it is, this kid has very little insight, and he's very hesitant to try. So sometimes I feel like I have to like really kind of push him because otherwise he will be very passive. So listening to myself, I feel like I was talking too much.
You
And
were trying too hard, you mean?
yeah, I want him to give. I want him to get better, because it's been a while already. This kid, it's really struggling. So I guess my desire to help him as much as possible maybe make me talk too much.
But
Okay.
Dr. Karina, Sarah just posted the same thing, that she has the same experience.
Okay, so let me see. Okay. I have to. Yeah, okay. So that's how. Because this kid is, and I told him today that I noticed that he's talking a little bit more, and I encourage him to do that, especially with you, Sarah. But as you can see, when he came, it's almost like he didn't share nothing, and now he's a little bit. So I, it's difficult for me to conceptualize this case fully. I feel like I'm missing a lot. And I obviously because he's not my client, and because you, Sarah, have him on a video, we don't have the normal, the face to face. It makes it more difficult. But what I was doing is I was obviously praising him. I was kind of summarizing. I was giving him a lot of empowerment. I was kind of like making him aware of this false alarm that is overly activated. I was using some of his own words. Whenever he said something, I would repeat it same way that he said it. What else? What was I doing besides talking too much?
But you were praising him.
Okay, I was praising him, encouraging him, and doing psycho ed about the alarm system, and encouraging him, to continue. Remember, practice, 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 practice. All right. So, what do you guys think about the 3 sessions? And what things did you pick up that were clinical, that were appropriate or effective, or what else was I missing that maybe could have worked better?
You know what I would do? I would ask him, like, what are the things you can do right now that you would love to go do? But you can because this happened to you. What would be something you would really, really love to do, be able to do at some point, to make him talk and to make him tell you?
Very good. Excellent. It's almost like goes to the same question of Dr. Hammond was saying, what previous accomplishment. And it's interesting because this kid doesn't have any interest. Sports, he's not into sports. Talk about games, he's not into games. The only interest that he has displayed with me, at least share, is that interest for cars. He's into cars. And he acknowledges that he's a little weird, so he picked up a few friends in Instagram randomly, and he's talking to these two girls.
I think in these days it's not uncommon for kids to do that. You know?
Okay, yeah,
That's how they socialize nowadays.
yeah. And I because I said, don't you want to go back to school? Didn't you have fun in school and play sports? And he said, no, I didn't learn, and it would be difficult for me to focus. He said, I learned better one-on-one than in a classroom. What do you know if he was a class clown?
Mom says that he was actually very comical. Like before, she talks a lot about missing that part of his personality where he was like, just always made everyone laugh.
I have a feeling that he was a clown. Yeah. Stella? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Well, I just have a question for you. This is a kid with a lot of trauma, and you were able to take him out and have him sit in a bus stop. How or how did you build that sense of safety for him to be able to trust you and say, okay, I'll go with you to there, and if I get killed, I get killed. I don't know what was going on through his mind, but I mean, because it's amazing for me. It's like this kid panicking and not being able, and then he goes with you. It's like, what did you do? I want to know, if possible.
Yeah, so I think when we talk about the therapeutic alliance, I think it's important, even though he's not my client, but I think him feeling comfortable with me and trusting me, and I think developing that sense of connection, and then also for me, again, trying to find a strength, and one of that is his liking for cars. He likes cars, and so do I. So we talked about, so he felt that I connected with him, discussing cars and racing cars, classical cars and all that stuff. And he wants to drive and all that stuff. So kind of like finding ways to connect with him so he doesn't see me like an old guy who doesn't know him. Kind of like more like being interested in what he likes. And then before I took him, remember, I played the videos of the guy with the gun, and in his mind, I took him outside. We did guided imagery. I said, I'm gonna take you outside. So, and I wish I had recorded those sessions where I said, okay, I'm gonna take you outside, but inside. So I said, okay, relax, I did that. And then in guided imagery, I said, okay, we're going outside. Just think about, you're walking with me. We're going outside the building. Now we're going into the street, so we're looking at the cars, kind of like, now we see a bench, so we're sitting down. So guided imagery kind of prepared him to get there. So I didn't just take him there because it could have been perhaps too much to deal with. But when he had the ability to de-escalate his level of distress, and having done the guided imagery, and him feel comfortable that he could do it, I feel that it was time, that. So it was kind of like therapeutic alliance, kind of like preparation for it, and then getting him the courage, that he was ready. Are you ready? Are you sure you're ready? And he said, yeah. And kind of like the empowerment that he felt safe enough with me that, he took the courage to do that. But because I don't think he could do that with anybody, not even with the parent. Because I told him right now, I was telling the mother, you need to get him out. Even if, find places where he would like to go and go with him. So right now he said, what if I ask him to go to the mall? And the kid said, mall? I said, you need to go to the mall. Go with your mom and go eat. And he said, okay, I'll go, mom. So I told the mother, encourage him and find places that he would like to go. He's following this barber, which is in front of us. And he said, you know what, I'm coming to this because I was looking at it. Now that I know it's in front of your place, he said, I'm gonna come for sure. And he said, oh, I said, why don't you go now? You wanna go now? He said, no, because they just did it, I think it's a week. I'm due like a week after, but I'm gonna come here. I'm gonna come to this place. So there's another place. So if we add more places to go to, perhaps you and mother can identify places that he could enjoy and
Something
take
click.
him over there. Hmm?
You move something, something clicked. Like, I'm gonna come here. You know, this is a good idea.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we're in Venice. We step out, there's a whole bunch of homeless. There's a guy who is half naked. There's another guy who's coming on the bike very aggressively. There's all this honking. There's all this graffiti everywhere. There's all these cops going everywhere. There's all this traffic chaos. I mean, like the lady was saying, we had to make him delusional that things are safe. Because in reality, in this neighborhood, a Latino kid with that kind of like profile, he's an easy target. Unfortunately, it's not it's not safe for kids. That's a reality,
Yeah.
in this neighborhood. So I'm taking a risk also, and I told the mother, would you give me consent to take him? Because I'm taking a risk that one of these homeless can like come after us, and I mean, but that's the risk that I take, because of who I am, and I guess because I'm the owner here. But if it was a company, I don't know if I would do it. I would have to get the authorization from the director or whoever it was, because it's a liability also that I take this kid outside in Van Nuys.
Yeah. Well, you have written consent, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
She signed, but there's no consensus saying like if I take him out and he gets beat up or shot, you're not gonna sue me. I mean, I have consent for treatment and also recording and EMDR, but I mean, I guess you kind of consider the potential benefits and the potential risks.
Right.
And if he's taking a risk, why not me take a risk also? It's kind of like if I know that this could be very efficient or is a good way to work with them, I said I'll take my risk also. And obviously, mom is here, and she has given us consent.
Well, perhaps let's hope that that doesn't happen, so you can continue with this fantasy that he could be safe.
Yeah, because if he gets beat up again or something happens, but Corena, you were like, shit, there, you lied to me. Man. It's like, man, I wish I could change, Van Nuys or Latino experience, but unfortunately, that's not. So the point is that the work is within.
Yeah.
So the work is within, because in the environment, there's not much we can do. In fact, I guess subconsciously thinking, oh, hopefully none of these punks, wanna come out and really do something to us, because there's so many out there who wanna, just for whatever reason wanna pick on somebody. Because it's true. Like if you have a teenage looking like that outside, it's not very safe, unfortunately, in Van Nuys or San Fernando Valley. So it's also like the lady was saying, we have to help them develop this solution that the world is safe. All right. Yeah, but again, that's kind of like a risk. So moving forward, Sarah, what do we do?
I will definitely be reinforcing all that you told him. Continue to practice even in session with the strategies. Let's see. continue to empower him. I probably like to try to, one thing that you did I like as well is engage him in the psychoeducation. Like you asked him, what did we discover? And then you kind of like reiterated what it was, what the answer was that he discovered. Definitely mom, getting mom involved in working with her anxiety, and yeah, and the work at home as well. And a very detailed timeline needed.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Very good. And so remember, because this kid, not only he likes insight, he's not a very sharp kid, and he's very shy. He doesn't have a lot of verbal skills. So what I said, so that's why I said, like, what do we learn from your own work, from your own experience? You know, what can you tell us about your experience today? So giving him the opportunity, and I told him, I said, and I encouraged him, say, you know, Sarah is really nice, and you know, she's very good, and I will say, like, if you feel comfortable with her, share more things, you know, that bother you, or things that you know you have questions about. You know, so kind of like encouraging him to be more open with you, because you guys have the ability to go into all the stuff. You know, for me, I feel like the time that I have him here, I need to go face all his fears, recondition his mind, you know, because otherwise he's gonna be so isolated and limited.
Yeah.
All right. So any other questions or comments? Mhm.
Can I say something really quick?
Please.
I had a family before that they had like a case of home invasion,
Mhm.
and there was 5 people, and it was a struggle to get them to feel safe in their own home. So I had this idea, because we have a friend, he's used to be a Navy SEAL. And so as a last resource, because I tried everything and nothing was working, nothing was moving, I guess. And so I talked to my supervisor, and she says, well, see if the family wants to talk to this guy, Navy SEAL, maybe he has some safety
Very good.
tips. And I talked to the family, and they were willing, so they signed the informed consent and all of that. So I brought him over, and he went around with them and checked all the house, the security, the gates, the lights, if it's lighted outside, if it was dark, all of that stuff. And then he talked to them, all of them together, and gave him a few tips about how to be safe in their home. And that from that point on, we really started to, do much better with them, and they were more open to interventions, and things started to feel safe with the kids and the parents. But it just took to bring a Navy SEAL. Just his presence was very comforting to them,
Very good. So
Yeah.
maybe we can talk about maybe this kid getting into some self-defense classes.
We need him.
Huh?
Jackie and I have that family, and they're very difficult to get through. Like, they don't talk.
Is the Navy SEAL still available? We have a family family of 7, that the guy broke in, and it was either he was high or he's schizophrenic. He broke into the home and he made a big chaos, and now the family is so chaotic in their own home and they don't feel safe. So maybe we can bring this Navy SEAL to their home.
What I learned from this guy is, like, I think I wrote down everything that all the advice is, like, they had to build a fence around, and like the front part of the house. And also they had to have everything lighted outside, because outside when it was dark, it was pitch dark. So they could see outside you know, if they wanted to pick, see who was out there really quick, then they'll turn the light on, and then the lights were like, they had sensors, so if anybody even came close to the light, everything would light up. And then also they have an attic, but the attic had this ladder, and one of those ladders that if you're going up in the attic and you're the last one, you can bring the ladder up and put it up there with you. So he told them to have a phone installed upstairs. If anything happens, the very last kid that comes up there, or the adult, he says the little kids will go up there first. And then, you know, in that order. And then the adults will be up last. And the first one that gets up there has to call the police or whoever. And so then while everybody's trying to climb that place, and somebody's already calling the police, and then things like that. And it was really, really amazing. And he made them walk around and said, okay, this gate do you need this gate to be open? No, okay, then this needs to be locked.
So that's a good plan, and I think it empowers people and it gives them a sense of better protection. And perhaps that got me thinking, Sarah, maybe you and Mom can explore what can Mom do? Can they go for a walk or a jog, or can they go out more, or like, you know, weather is still really nice. Even if they just go walk in a park or something, to be more outside.
Does he have a friend that he can invite a friend?
He doesn't have any friends.
Not really. I think Mom does try that with everything. Every time she goes out. We've talked about the idea of classes, but again, it's getting there. Like he had been interested in boxing at one point, but it's getting to the place. So what else? He has expressed interest in coming to the LA office for the 20th time, as I've told y'all. And he showed part of his face this week too. So
I encourage him to do that.
For sure, yeah.
Maybe you can schedule an appointment over there to the office, so that he gets so he goes out more.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll continue to brainstorm on this case, but the good thing is that it's perfect timing, because, you know, as we're learning this stuff, and then we see it in clinical practice, and kind of like having the combination, and so we can incorporate what we are learning into a clinical practice. So I'm gonna stop recording here.